Well, the communications and network lead at Youth Capital, Clotilde Angelucci, joins us now virtually for more. Very good evening to you, Angelique. Thank you so much for joining us, and a warm welcome to the late edition.
Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. We just heard President Ramaphosa describing youth unemployment as South Africa's greatest challenge. Now, from Youth Capital's research and advocacy, how do these stats translate into the daily lived experiences and the lived realities of young people across the country?
Well, we've seen, according to the latest quarterly labor force survey by SABC, that the expanded definition of unemployment, of youth unemployment, which includes young people who are discouraged, see 56.4% among young people between the ages of 15 and 34 years old who are unemployed, which puts 1 in 2 young people, and we've seen that in the last 10 years these stats have worsened. So it's really encouraging to hear that President Ramaphosa puts young people's needs at the center, but at the same time we haven't seen these commitments transpired in the budget allocations to the programs.
Yeah. But then do you feel that this framing by the president reflects an adequate sense of urgency? I mean, given the crisis levels of youth unemployment in SA?
Yes, absolutely. And I think as a campaign, Youth Capital is really appreciative that the president outlines what are some of the systemic barriers that young people face in the economy. Research by Youth Capital states that 8 in 10 young people have to choose between buying food and looking for work. So there's definitely like a spatial issue and also a cost issue with looking work. And also we've seen the role of work experience. So it's always, according to SABC, 6 in 10 unemployed young people have never had work experience before. So I think it's really great, and there is this urgency. The only question that Youth Capital poses is like, what are we going to do about it?
Yes.
In the sense that government programs can help young people put a foot in the door and gain work experience, but these job opportunities are short term, and we've seen that our economic growth has been really stagnant. We've seen the latest quarter we've only grown 0.1%. So how can we set young people up for success once these opportunities finish?
And I suppose that question we just asked, I suppose that question should have been posed to the president. I mean, he referenced large-scale programs to provide opportunities for the youth to earn an income. So in your assessment, have these programs been effective in terms of addressing structural unemployment, or are they mostly temporary relief measures?
So because unemployment is a structural issue, it really largely depends with the structure of the economy, right? And the financial framework, the fiscal framework that National Treasury applies also plays a role. Yeah. And we've seen in the last 10 years, deep cuts to the allocations to active labor market programs and public employment programs. So if you look at the presidential employment stimulus, one of its largest programs that the president referenced in his speech, the Basic Education Employment Initiative, went from creating 500,000 opportunities in the first year to 200,000 opportunities this year. And last year, the funding was uncertain and the program didn't even run. So it's and for this program, for 200,000 opportunities, there were 1.9 million applications. So young people are ready to work. And I think an opportunity that the Presidential Employment Stimulus and the Social Employment Fund have really highlighted is really double investment. So look at the work that these teacher assistants are doing in schools. And you've highlighted, even with your previous interview, the shortcomings in literacy and the role it plays. Yes. So how can we promote employment that promotes double investment, that promotes social cohesion in communities, that allows young women to escape the unpaid domestic work burden and being able to look for work. And I think that's a very important aspect that often the market doesn't focus on, doesn't highlight, and that's the real opportunity that these programs offer.
Whatever program there is, we always need to take stock of the success of that program. I mean, how should success then be measured in these programs? Is it A, purely the number of young people placed, or B, the deeper outcomes the government should prioritize?
As Youth Capital, we think that that we should definitely look at it's great to have the number of opportunities, and they definitely highlight the scale of the program. But we must also look at the deeper outcomes. So again, with the Presidential Employment Stimulus, and especially the Basic Education Employment Initiative, the fact that it took place, or it's taking place in 20,000 schools, this means like schools across the country, across, peri-urban and urban areas. And some of these areas, and we see this in the stats, with the quarterly labor force survey by SABC, that there's some areas that are classified economic deserts, where there's like youth unemployment rates are higher than national average. So it's really important to see how the economic impact can really trickle up. From communities through the stipends that these young people acquire. And there's been studies, there's been some work by Saldru looking at the impact, not just in households, but actually in the spending patterns that these young people, how they spend money in the communities, and how they've actually created employment opportunities with indirect benefits. But these can't be stopgap measures. So we need to make sure that the funding for these interventions are ring-fenced in the medium to long term.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I would have loved to hear what bold policy interventions or the budget reallocations Youth Capital would have wanted to hear, in the President's budget vote today. But great chatting to you. Thank you so much for this incredible conversation.
Thanks, Simpiwe.
Thank you. And I guess the question remains whether the President's budget allocation matches the scale of the youth unemployment crisis. I mean, where are the most glaring gaps in alignment between policy rhetoric and budget reality? Many thanks to Communications and Network Lead at Youth Capital, Clotilde Angelucci, who helped us analyze this.